Hey, qué show, qué show. What's up, what's up? ¿Cómo están, banda? Somos Grupo Inframundo. What's up, everybody? We are Underworld. Y pues nada, aquí vamos a hacer la entrevista con Tim Richardson. Tim Richardson ha realizado muchas películas de parodias y de cine indie, las cuales dentro de ellas entran lo que son The DORK of the Rings, Harry Potter, The Ridiculous Premise, The THROBBIT and VULASSIC PARK, and their current film, Dr Spiderwacks, Mind Boggle, Compendium of Fantastic Urban Beasts. Y son muchas de las parodias de las que Tim ha realizado durante sus años de cineasta. This team has made a lot of movies, parody movies, the ones that I just said in Spanish, but I will repeat it. Is the Dark of the Rings, Harry Potter and the Ridiculous Premise, The THROBBIT, VULASSIC PARK, Dr Spiderwacks, Mind Boggle Compendium, Fantastic Urban Beasts will be released in early 2024. So these are the films that this team has made over the years. He also has their movie called the Kill the Messenger. Yeah, Kill the Messenger, which is the one that I think it was your first movie, right, Tim? Yeah.
It was first one of the 2000s.
Okay. So this is Tim Richardson, the special guest from Group Underworld. Woo!
Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you, Tim.
Nice to meet you, Tim.
¿Cómo va a funcionar la dinámica? Es de que voy a estar hablando en inglés y luego ya lo paso a español. ¿Ok? Entonces, bueno, empecemos. Tim, hi. Well, I have met you from a lot of years, and I want you to ask for everybody that is watching this, can you tell us like your story, your filmmaking story of what was the inspiration that made you to do like, like these kind of films, to be in the screenwrite, to be a director, a producer? What was your inspiration, first of all?
Okay, well, again, thanks for having me on. It's very exciting. So yeah, I've been doing films for a while. Really started in the around 1990 when I was in high school, and it really kind of came together. I was always interested in parodies films, Mad Magazine, Mel Brooks, Monty Python, and really kind of got into doing some video projects in high school and doing some skits, and then it kind of led to making our first movie, which was called Dracula the Parody. And we were really had a lot of fun making that. I got involved in theater in high school at the time, so I had a lot of actors around. I had friends who were interested in it, and we kind of just went from there into college. I was making more parodies, and then we did some dramas for a while, and then we did the Civil War film you mentioned around 2003. And after making that one, I really felt like getting back to some of the comedy parody roots, and jump back in with the Dork of the Rings that next year, and followed by those other parodies you mentioned. So I just like the process of the storytelling, through filmmaking, sort of the it's always an adventure. You going through that process and always working. Over the years we've developed a stable of actors that we like and that we work with, and it's always a lot of fun. It's always nice. I always think of films as sort of a time capsule. I can look back at the films we made in, high school or college or in recent years, and it's always kind of capturing that moment in time, kind of on a personal level. And then it's always great to try to share it with an audience and see if they find things as entertaining as we do.
Nice to meet a fellow Mel Brooks fan too.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, to be honest, you can't be a parody artist without mentioning Mel Brooks.
Yeah.
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Here
I was
comes
also heavily influenced by Saturday Night Live, with sketch comedy. And then again, like I said, Monty Python, both the movies and the sketch comedy. So we've done some British type parodies over the years too. We did the Mindless Adventures of Robin Hood and his merry band of idiots, just on the high school. And,
that's a really nice name.
Yeah, listening to that title just brought me memories of Robin Hood, Man in Tights.
Yep.
Kind of title.
Yeah,
also a Mel Brooks film. So yeah.
What was funny was the only reason I came up with that idea was we saw a children's play at the local college and thought, oh, that'd be fun to do a Robin Hood parody. And then the Robin Hood movie was coming out with Kevin Costner, and then the Mel Brooks movie was coming out. So it's kind of like everything at once. It's kind of like it works that way. Like when we did our Civil War movie, we weren't looking at any kind of trend. We were just like, oh, this would be, and that was Kill the Messenger. Hey, let's make a Civil War movie. Then it just seemed like everywhere we looked, there was now a Civil War film in the theater, going on. And so it's strange how that works. It's not.
You anticipated the trend.
Yeah, it wasn't really our intention to jump on any bandwagons. Sometimes, by the time we start a project, because it's an independent film, and by the time it's done, we look like we're late to the game, but we were really first. We had that issue with our Harvey Putter film. We started that in 2006, writing it. We filmed it in 2008, but by the time it released in 2010, kind of like the months before it came out, this group called Star Kid, actually not even 4 hours from where I live, did a theater musical production, a Harry Potter kind of musical comedy, and it blew up. So it kind of took the winds out of our sails, because now they were out there and people were going gaga, and then we came in, Johnny come lately, as it were, but we had already been working on it for 3 years. So it's all in the timing.
Yeah, that tends to happen too. It happens to Diego and I. We were writing a script, a very good script. We were like, oh my God, yes, this is so good. And because of time constraints, we were like pushing it back, getting the money to do it, all of that stuff. We were like, we need to see something that we are doing here. We need to watch it live. We need to do a maquette of it, a mock-up. So we were in YouTube looking for videos, for the aesthetics, for the shots, all of this. And we found a video and we were like, that's exactly the same thing we're doing. It's the same thing we're just filming. It's this thing. When it was uploaded? 3 months ago.
Yeah, that's something horrible. That happened to me with, I got like a script of a teddy bear that was the friend of a slasher like villain, and something like that happened then with the TV show of Happy and other kind of stuff, like different types of trends like this, the cute character and the badass character relationship. Something like that happened that I was like, damn, I think this is something that now is trending, right? So yeah, that's interesting. Also,
I was going to say real quick with the Spiderwacks film, it's hopefully finally working in our favor. When the Spiderwacks Chronicles movie came out way back in 2010, 8,
probably, yes.
We just got done with Harvey Putter, and I just wanted to cleanse my palate from it a little bit. At least we were done filming it, and I really liked the field guide and the artwork of Tony Dieterlisi, and I actually got to meet him some years later and talk to him about the parody ideas I came up with. Right around that time, I came up with the idea of, Spiderwacks and just some of the basic characters and the parodying. Well, now finally they're doing the Spiderwacks Chronicles series coming out on Roku. Will be in 2024, and it's going to time out finally perfectly with us releasing it. So we're taking a movie that that was, when I came up with the idea, was 13 years ago or more, and now suddenly it's going. We took so long to make it that it's actually working in our favor for once.
You were like, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Good promotion.
There's this like weird beehive connection thing, neural thing that happens oftentimes. Right now that exactly today, the new Napoleon film just released. And a lot of people have been talking about the Stanley Kubrick project that never made. And there was this story that he dropped the project because at the same time, other filmmakers were doing their own Napoleon stuff, series, miniseries, movies, and they all just flopped. And he knew that he wouldn't dare to make a really expensive film that will just flop if having seen that others have tried that and Why he being such
Why
a
even
nice
bother?
filmmaker? Exactly. Why just bother? And he just botched it. And now Ridley Scott is delivering his own take on the Napoleon
Mhm.
history, and Steven Spielberg is still planning to take the original script by Stanley Kubrick and make it a TV series without changing anything. And it's just happening at the same time that
Right.
this new movie is just coming out. So
And
it's
Spielberg
just a weird thing that happens. I don't know
Right.
why.
Yeah.
Spielberg was me the same as us. Like, oh god damn it! I waited so long to make this TV show, and now Ridley
Mhm.
Scott comes and do a Napoleon movie too.
Mhm. Well, another influence of mine is Weird Al Yankovic, of course. I've done lots
Oh,
of
of course.
parody songs and things and parody music videos. Just think what a different world it would be if what his career would be like, even though it's phenomenal. His movie UHF, one of my favorite films, came out up against Temple of Doom and something else, and it tested really well. But when it was released, it was up against these blockbusters, and it just got buried. But you can imagine, what it would be if it hadn't been up against all that stuff. There could be more Weird Al movies. Until having to wait until just recently for.
Yeah.
I want to live in a multiverse. I need to be in a multiverse with Weird Al Yankovic movies.
Yeah.
I've just saw the Weird Al Yankovic like a couple of months ago with Daniel Radcliffe.
Mhm.
That was bonkers. That was quite a fun movie, but that's exactly the essence of what a parody movie should be.
Mhm.
It's making all these commentary and jokes about the current state of music artists having their own movies. Like we got Queen, we got Elton John,
Right.
and they have like this formula. And obviously, being Weird Al Yankovic, being producing and acting in that film, you gotta know that to make a parody, you have to take that essence of what make a movie popular and just spin it around.
Mhm.
And he just did with that film. I mean, like the very first half of the movie is like procedural music artist film,
Mhm.
like text movie,
Right.
and the second half is throwing everything out of the window.
Right.
It's the Madonna effect. You know that story too, I guess. It's like Madonna was like took the like a virgin video
Mhm.
and Weird Al make like a surgeon, and Madonna's people were like, "Oh my God, Madonna, did you see that Weird Al Yankovic is parodying you?" And Madonna was like, "Really? He is? That's awesome news! I always wanted to be a parody of Weird Al Yankovic."
Right. Exactly.
And she
Because
loves it.
yeah,
She loves the video.
this team has I think that something that it's really cool is that every parody that you have make has your footprint, has your essence, because that's something like says Diego, something that I think that every person that makes a comedy like Mel Brooks, like the ones from Scary Movie and Naked Gun,
The Marlons. The
yeah.
Wyatt. The Marlon Brothers.
Yeah, it could be, but they got like their footprint, and I think that that's something that has your essence in every movie. I mean, I know that every kind of parody that you make, it's a franchise that you love, right? You are a fan of, just like Jurassic Park, that he
Yeah.
has the T-shirt right now, the
Jurassic
Jurassic Park, that is his parody movie about it's Jurassic Park, but with pickles instead of dinosaurs. It's a really funny plot that team made. And what was the like your first parody movie was Dracula, you said, right?
Yeah.
Like comedy. And you try to make it like a parody of the novel Dracula, or what was your like inspiration? I that's interesting, right? Because I don't
Yeah.
know if you use like this stuff from the book, stuff from the Bela Lugosi, Nosferatu. What was your inspiration in this
Yeah.
parody movie, and also in the Harry Potter and the Lord of Rings parody? Did you use the material of the book, or the movies? What's your preference?
Excellent question. I have to think back to the Dracula one. I do know for sure at that time in high school, I was reading Frankenstein. I was reading the book Dracula. At that time, I honestly didn't have a lot of experience or access to. I'd never seen, like, only in bits and pieces, the traditional Bela Lugosi. Yet Anne Rice was out with Interview with the Vampire kind of around that time, or getting, so I kind of just, I took the original Dracula story and I just kind of did my own thing in a sense. It's about Dracula coming over to America, modern day, with like a hunchback Igor. And of course I had young Frankenstein in my mind a bit too, I suppose. And he's moving into a boarding house and you have all these wacky characters and it's just about him. Oh, and the thing is that these people who live in this boarding house that he ends up getting a room in, several of them are auditioning for a play, and the play is Dracula. And so they encourage him to audition, and he ends up not getting cast because they said he had the worst Dracula impression they'd ever heard.
Was that a nod to Charles Chaplin?
Do kind of like someone drops out, I think, and they end up putting him. He's the understudy. I don't remember for sure. He ends up in it, and the irony is that he ends up finally getting killed, but only because they accidentally kill him on stage in the play. They mess up the performance and accidentally stab the actor with the with the prop, and it turns out to be real, and it kills him.
Oh my God, we killed the real Dracula.
And it just kind of ends. But it was really interesting because it was just our first film, so it was shot a lot, very theatrical. It's very like, here's one wide shot and the entire scene plays out, for minutes. Very mise en scène to not
where can we watch
way. But I would like to point out, even though we made a lot of parodies, we kind of went down the path of making a lot of different parodies and comedies during that time. In college, I met my co-creator, co-producer for all my projects since about the mid-90s, Michael Kouroubetes. So when you talk about a footprint, there is the Tim Richardson footprint that existed. And then once I met Michael, we really married together. We had a synergy. We had similar and yet different ways of looking at things. And so now it's really difficult to look at a project and imagine anymore even writing a project by myself in many ways, because we make it better working off of each other. And we did some dramas first together. He helped me a little bit on a film called Revelations. And then we wrote a film called Bloodlines together, a drama about an Amish boy looking for his non-Amish father in South Bend, Indiana. Michael wrote a sci-fi thriller called A Kill. And then it was after that we co-wrote the Civil War movie. So we actually did a lot of like non-comedy parody stuff together for a number of years before finally, when I said I want to do Dork of the Rings, he jumped in, and that was really our first time, I think, writing comedy together, though we had worked on some plays together that I directed that he had written that definitely had he always has an interesting sense of humor. So that's kind of how we got into all that. And so now all these films, like you were mentioning Harvey Potter, what was based on more on the movie or the book at the time, we had to do both in the sense we were primarily looking at the movies. But when we were writing it, we were only up to movie 4, So the challenge was the books were out, so I had to start reading the books to catch up on the plot. So I had to read book 5 and 6. So movie 5 comes out, we're still writing, and we have to finally, I don't know if I had told you this, the author of What Will Happen in Harry Potter 7 is actually lived like an hour away from me. He was a New York Times bestselling author, and he ran MuggleNet.com, which is still around today. And he got to interview J.K. Rowling, and he actually has a cameo in our film. But the point being is that no one knew how the movie was, the book series was going to end, and we're trying to end our own take on it. We knew the big deal was, is Harry Potter going to die? That was really what was going around at the time. Will he be killed off? And of course, J.K. Rowling got her cake and had her cake and ate it too, because he died, but then didn't die. It only killed the Horcrux. So anyway, so we kind of just made up our own ending, but based off the fact that she wanted to kill him off in ours, so that she could get out of having to write children's literature and move on to something saucier. So we just kind of integrated our own ending, not knowing fully. But there's the whole thing: Snape a good guy, Snape a bad guy. So we tried to play into those themes and have it not matter really how the original book was going to end. So that was a challenge, writing a movie while the ending of the real series, and then trying to quickly incorporate things from that 7th book that would look weird if we didn't have them mentioned in our parody film. So it was challenging, taking 7 books and 8 movies essentially whittled down into 1 hour, 40-minute film.
Well, that was really a challenge.
Now with DORK of the Rings, we really just got to we watched, the 3 movies. Well, the 3rd movie was in the theater, I believe, when we were writing it. Or no, the 2nd movie was in the theater. Somehow we knew enough of the 3rd plot. I forget how all that worked, but we didn't have a lot of hassle. We kind of banged that out in 3 months, because there's really a journey. Like you go here, you go here, you go here, you go here. Yep. When we did the THROBBIT movie years later, because the movie wasn't out yet, not even the first one, we looked at the art and things that were kind of coming out, and we did actually go back to just reading The Hobbit. So what's funny is the THROBBIT is a more accurate representation of the story of The Hobbit than The Hobbit.
It was like
the source material.
It was like, for example, again, Weird Al Yankovic, when he made the how is it called? The Saga Begins, the song he made about Star Wars.
Yes,
he did the song only by listening to rumors about the film. He didn't watch the film. It was only about rumors, and he was like, "Okay, I think I know how it happened. I don't know how it's gonna happen."
Exactly. I think he ultimately paid a lot of money to get into like a super early screening of some kind, to hammer it, to finalize it. But it's a lot of guesswork in some of these. The Spiderwacks film is interesting because I'd never read the book series. I was completely inspired by the artwork of all the creatures, the mythology of all these creatures, and the drawings. Then I went back and read the series, which was fine. And then we had kind of the idea of like, okay, it's in nature, so it's about how if you go out in nature, spirit, these nature spirits live among us, but they're invisible. They can make themselves invisible, or they can disguise themselves as flowers or insects or whatever else, unless you have a way to see them. And so I did like to turn things on their head and think, what's the opposite? What would happen if, fine, they live out in nature, but what happens in the city? So when an area gets urbanized, if those fairies don't move off to, what if they didn't move out of that area, but they stayed and still had to sort of live among us, disguise themselves, and so that was sort of the idea of an urban version instead of a out in nature version. So you have, instead of sprites that look like flowers or insects, you have litter sprites that make themselves look like trash. They might look like a crumpled up soda can or a packet of cigarettes or whatever else you might find laying around, and that way they go unnoticed in the urban setting.
The lamppost.
Well, if you allow me to say it, first of all, thanks for the early screening for that film.
Oh, you're welcome.
And having watching it and having just listened to you, the logic behind the film, you just made a better version of Bright.
Yep.
Will Smith's Bright.
I know. Well, in fact, I narrated over this whole thing for years, since it was around, like I said, around 2008 or so. Bright, I remember Bright coming out, and I remember thinking, oh, here's urban fairies, here's urban magical creatures, this is sort of this idea. And then it seemed to kind of creep out in a few other kinds of ways over the years as well. So it's also...
You were like, I seen this somewhere.
Right. And then you even have things like Onward, even though it's not set in our times, it is creatures living, magical people living in a modern society, as it were.
As it was, yeah. I was about to mention Onward, Disney's Onward, because first of all, that was the last movie before theaters shut down because of the pandemic.
Right.
I took my nieces to watch it,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I was thinking the same. I mean, they have all this lore about how the magic creatures existed normally like humans,
Mm-hmm.
just grew up and all, because we always picture fairy tales and dragons and that in medieval times, in past,
Mm-hmm.
but it's really hard to picture them in our times. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
just as bright and onward.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Dr. Spiderwack
Right.
tightly fitted, and even movies like Harry Potter that has the modern setting. Well,
Right.
the modern setting, but they separate the magic, and the magic is in this medieval castle and witches
Mm-hmm.
and the attires. And that's one beautiful thing that Alfonso Cuarón did when he jumped into directing the third film, is that okay, these are teenagers, but these are not 16th century teenagers. These are
Right.
modern day teenagers. They have to dress like our teenagers. Why they're dressing in those black long robes? And I
Right.
understand it's
You
the
talk about Alfonso Cuarón when he took over the third film, definitely emphasized that whole thing, right?
yeah, and that just changed and put a different perspective on the movie, because they were not returning to the past. They were in the modern times. It's just that the setting is just different, but they are
Right.
still from our times.
And
Yeah,
that's
even the
something.
even the Spiderwick Chronicles sort of wanted to do an American. The idea is to have an American, fairy tale story, in the sense of that magic, and of course, New England setting originally in the story works well for that. In the new miniseries, it's going to be set in like Michigan, actually, which is kind of funny since I live in Michigan. So, and actually, the original director of the movie of Spiderwick Chronicles is from South Bend, which is where near here, which is where I teach. He actually went to this, I believe he went to the same high school I'm teaching at. So Mark Waters, I know I've talked with his and done some things with Daniel Waters, who's his brother, who did Heathers, are from this area. So it's kind of interesting. Looking at characters. Oh, sorry. Did you have a question, Felipe, earlier?
Oh, it was more like a statement, more like I also saw the movie. It was weird because Santiago told us like, oh, look at this small clip from the film. It was like small clip. It's like an hour long. And I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. But you really did it. I mean, you really did a really good job adapting Spiderwick into a modern city, and I like it a lot because yeah, when you do comedy, sometimes I don't know, you kind of forgot the rules of the world, you kind of forgot of the lore, and you just like pick and choose things from the source. But you didn't do that. You really make like a really good adaptation of Spiderwick and the lore and the rules of the world into the city, and that's really hard to do.
Yes, and in fact, I'm glad you mentioned that. And there's a lot of things in there that may or may not make sense based on edits and other versions of like versions of the script. Michael and I are very, very in tune, and we argue a lot about what to care about and not care about in terms of the world and the rules. And there's certain things that, like I said, could be a little more specific in there. We had a lot of rules that probably didn't find their way consistently through always, but we definitely had lengthy. We for an example, if you record a fairy on your cell phone, can you see it? You know, so things like that. We had whole sequences where we're like, okay, can he film them? And then we went to this whole thing. Can he can they create a magical app that then lets you see fairies? Because going forward through the whole film, he's shooting them. Well, it would just be blank. He would see them, you know, so there were all these like things that we had to determine where the audience would go, wait a minute, or not go, wait a minute. So some things we just totally ditched, or we just didn't address, end up bringing up. We kind of mentioned that fairy creatures can make themselves turn invisible, but we didn't really hammer on it because usually we didn't really have any opportunities where they did it much. But yeah, we had a lot of different things we tried to look at, the rules of this world. And we had a lot more detail that didn't make it in, like where Karnoff went. Like when he vanished, he was supposed to be in some other total underworld place with all this stuff going on. And we had to whittle all that monologue down, you know, at the end and try to just get the essence of what was going on, because there was just too much history. We ended up cutting an entire monologue that had a whole history of where we felt the Earth got repopulated by, you know, magic kind. And it's just like, we're like, whoa, 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 whoa.
For me, it was funny that in the rules of the movie, Bigfoot doesn't exist. So,
Correct, right.
yeah, for me that was funny because everything can happen, but Bigfoot doesn't exist. That the main character is going and going with the
Right. The fairies go, we have no idea what you're talking
He
about.
doesn't exist.
And that's why
Yeah.
not to give away the
I thought that was a nod to What We Do in the Shadows, the series. If you haven't
love
watched it, but there's a scene where the vampires are like, "Oh my God, Guillermo, ghosts don't exist." And it's like, "Oh really? You're vampires, you see zombies in the street, you see banshees and all these creatures, but ghost is where you draw the line."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I
exactly.
know. But also, Tim, I think we got a special guest from the Spiderwacks movie, right?
Oh yeah. So I've got Hogsworth here. So he was one of the key characters. He appears throughout the film, quite a few scenes. I did, as we write the script, I end up doing voices for a lot of the characters. I did not end up doing the voice of Hogsworth for it because I wanted to have a puppeteer who could have his voice and have a performance. I did end up playing him in one scene and then got dubbed over. So you've got Hogsworth, the Snob Goblin. So he's a play on the Hogsqueal the Hobgoblin in Spiderwick Chronicles. Yes, who are these rascallions? Mm-hmm. Am I getting paid enough to be here? I don't think so.
I have a question. I have a couple of questions that they're kind of tied in. What is your creative process into making these parodies? How long did you take them, and how long did you take to make one of these?
Okay, that's a very good question. So
I'm saying because you do puppeteering, you do props, you have obviously a lot of CGI. Well, some special effects right in there, and in the end, it's still a movie. There's still a process of writing, of producing it, of post-producing it, all this stuff.
I'd say by and large, each project's a little different. We usually try to film during a summer if possible. Dork of the Rings was a bit of an exception. We went into the fall on that one. That one we spent about, Dork of the Rings was like 3 months writing, really quick pre-production time, which included building a giant green screen cyclorama for it for the first time, and then a long post-production because it was the first time we'd really used green screen in an extensive way. So it was like a 2.5-year process or so from writing to finished product. Harvey Putter was about a year longer than that because we started the script way early and wanted to spend a lot more time on pre-production and writing, and because of writing, combining the 7 movies. THROBBIT went pretty quickly too. We filmed that like in 2013, came out 2015. VULASSIC Park was quick because I took the original script. We had originally made it back in 1993 and then in 1994. a version. And we had a script that I adapted. And so that one was a fairly quick turnaround within a couple of years. This one has been our longest film for Spiderwack. We had different variations of the script going around for a year or so, even doing table readings and things to try to get, people's feeling on it. Then we were going to film it in like 2008, summer 2018, and the script just wasn't really ready. And I had also just taken a job full-time teaching video production and film production for South Bend School Corporation for juniors and seniors. And so that took away a lot of time and energy. So we weren't ready that summer. And then we started filming 2019 summer. And even while we were filming it, I went, let's not rush it. Let's come back next summer and do anything we don't do or film over this year. Well, then we had the fire in the warehouse that we were supposed to be filming in. So it was no longer a location, and we lost some of our equipment and such. And then we also had COVID then the next year. So we ended up doing the whole third act, which would be, or a lot of it, which would have been in an actual location warehouse. In order to have enough control over the setting, I bought a 20 by 20 party tent basically and put green screens in it in my driveway. And we had our own little sound stage. And we filmed all those scenes there. However, that meant several more years of post-production, putting in all the backgrounds, doing all those things. So the process for this one's definitely been the longest of any film we've had because of all the things that have happened. But we're finally excited to release it, and we're happy with how it's turned out.
And obviously, all this artistry is not only coming from you. You have an entire team behind you, helping you, right?
Sure. Yeah, exactly. What's kind of interesting is over the years, we've pared down in many ways. What's funny is with like Dork of the Rings, we had a pretty small crew, but we at least had an art director and a costume designer and some people really kind of making it happen. Same thing for Harvey Putter. As we kind of went into THROBBIT and VULASSIC, and even this film, somehow it just kind of worked out. I ended up just kind of doing a lot of stuff. Like we had a lot of people helping, but what we found was the more you spread out, you could spread out the work, but then there's that many more people to manage as well. Yeah. And what I discovered is a lot of times it would be easier just to have my vision and make the thing myself now than spend 5 times that time having someone else do it. So I've tried to get it down to, if it's reasonable, if it doesn't take me away from doing other things, do it myself. Like I built the Hogsworth puppet, for example, or put together other things. But if there's other people who can help, like, hey, you can make this one thing and I know you can just do it, then we just do it, or buy it, buy things that we could adapt and save time. So it's kind of a little bit of everything. So we kind of actually, even though we got a lot of crew going, we did have less art team in some ways because I was over time just picking away at a lot of the different things in recent films anyway.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. Also, these like goblins, the goblins of the troll hacker. I remember that you sent me a message that a friend of yours did those puppets, right?
Yeah, I should have brought one out here. I've got one. They're laying somewhere in one of these crates.
Oh, awesome!
But my friend made those for the THROBBIT. We were doing a parody of how the Hobbit has a Goblin King, right? Yep. So we're like, well, Goblin King. Well, the Labyrinth also has a Goblin King. So if we make it a David Bowie, homage.
Oh, that will be awesome.
So we made a bunch. We made some. We wanted to do a parody, so we made them Gooblins. And then we're like, well, maybe it's like Google, so they're like tech savvy and they run that. So we always try to find a way with our pun or the parody name. Sometimes the parody name informs, like maybe gives us a direction on what these things do or what the character's like. So so we basically had a Goblin King that looked like David Bowie, and then we had these Goblin puppets made, and made from scratch, sculpted by my friend Todd Davis, an amazing artist, and created and painted and all that. And then we reutilized them for Dr. Spiderwacks because we thought they were, in fact, they're the same characters. We even had the same actor come back to play one of the characters. So they have a small part in the THROBBIT and a bigger part in this film, and they're great. And it was fun working with them because then I was also the internet troll. It's hard to see what's behind me. I got the internet troll is up here. He's probably pretty microscopic.
We can see it. We can see it. Also, I had a question about that, and thank you for bringing it up, because you already talked about your inspiration, like Mel Brooks and all these filmmakers, for style in your writing or in your directing job, right? But in the creation of the puppets, what was your inspiration? I mean, I already see Big Bird in the background and Kermit the Frog.
Absolutely.
You already talked about Labyrinth, but
Right.
were there any more like puppet shows? Maybe Dark Crystal.
So yeah, absolutely. So Jim Henson, yes, absolutely a huge influence. I grew up on Sesame Street. In fact, I do drawing as well, cartoons, caricatures, and just help design things for our projects. I was at like 3 years old. I was drawing Ernie and Bert all day long. So yep, there's the troll. So when I got the chance I wanted to do a really large puppet for it. And a lot of times what we found in our films is sometimes I just got to be the one to do it. Like putting someone else in that outfit and trying to have them do it. Like I just got to do it. Because I know what I want. I know that it's
the essence of the character.
Yeah, and because it's also uncomfortable, and it's I'd be far more frustrated trying to direct some poor guy in that costume than putting it on myself. And I made sure it was as comfortable as I could, in the sense that it's a big blue inflatable suit. So it didn't have a lot of weight. But the hardest part about the costume was keeping my arm. I was not prepared for how my arm would have to be bent in a particular way to make it the neck directly in front of me and not like at a crooked, weird angle. And so that was challenging. I still don't know how Carol Spinney did Big Bird, because I guess he was straighter, probably. He had a broader neck. And then the other thing was visibility. We really didn't have a good way for me to see out of this thing, even when we tried to cut some holes in the fur. Fortunately, he does not have a lot of movement. A lot of the scenes here we filmed at my house, actually, that you can see me sitting in the same chair there that I'm sitting in now. We turned this area into the troll's lair. But yeah, the first day in the costume was really challenging, because we ended up we were going to have like an arm like Big Bird where it's just kind of hanging on him, but it didn't look right. So we ended up having my friend who went to puppet school basically did the other hand so that he could gesture with two hands, and it turned out really well. And he talks like this, You idiot.
How hot was inside?
What's that?
How hot was inside
the suit?
Not as hot as you'd think. Fortunately, because I was surrounded by air, So we would inflate it, but it still had a layer of fur on it, and we had to make sure that you couldn't staple anything to the suit, so you had to kind of like find a way to attach the fur and all the different things. So, and as you can see there, I did have some good assistants for sure, helping me get the head off. Or if you watch we did voice dubbing for all those scenes, but on the set you'll hear them say, "Look left, step to your right." Someone off screen is telling me where I should be looking or standing, because I could not tell if my eye line was correct always. But yeah, it was a really fun character. I really liked how he turned out. And again, with bits and pieces, that wig he's wearing, actually, I'd had for like 20 years or more, since we had done a Weird Al parody where I played Weird Al, and that was the hair I used. And we ended up using it on the troll then.
I was
and
repurposing things.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I want to also. I invited some persons that are watching right now the live, that are right now in the puppet industry. So it's really interesting this, because it's like some kind of classes, of the Big Bird mechanic, Also, the live hand. That's the name, I think. The live hand that the other person is like using the hand, and the other person is with the head on the other hand. That's
kind of
how
like
they made
Cookie
the
Monster, kind of like kind of like Ernie, except larger. It's like Big Bird with a double live hand, a live hand puppet.
Yeah, that's right. And also your other puppet, the guest one that is right with you, this Wordsworth, has this particular arm roots. Arm roots is the name of the hands, of how did you use it, right? Yeah.
You're saying how did he get used? Yeah, so he's a hand and rod puppet, right? So he's got. Right. It's always tricky to get, have it at the, you can see his arm bending in a really weird way because I'm not on the correct side here. But yeah, it's always interesting because you have to watch eye lines with the puppet. Where is he looking? Is he looking in the right place? Is he crooked? So there are just a lot of, like I said, this got kind of warped. I think his arm got a little twisted, so it's not in its. And again, he was like I was telling you before the interview started, we, didn't want to have to make it from scratch. Found a good pig puppet from Wolf Manus, makes really nice puppets, and created that. But I do have the Sniffler puppet. I don't have a picture, or I don't have it right with me. I based that off the Niffler, but I built that a couple years before I even started filming for the film, and so that was from scratch. Other than buying pieces for it, like a little elephant trunk to put on it. But the idea is that instead of how the Niffler would put coins in its little pouch, like a marsupial, this thing has Kleenex, and handkerchief because it's, kind of cold. So there are a lot of characters that could have been more emphasized. We had, because obviously one thing we didn't touch on is we decided because Spiderwick was not as huge a property as, say, Harry Potter or Fantastic Beasts, it made a lot of sense to bring Fantastic Beasts in some way into it because it's kind of got that same idea in many ways.
Same vibe.
Even though it's set in the past, the idea of these magical creatures existing in the Harry Potter world and having someone, there's definitely makes sense to have that kind of character in there. So we had how there's the forgive me, I'm forgetting the name of the walking stick character that Newt Scamander,
Scamander
has. We had one made that was like a pipe cleaner with googly eyes. That was like a bunch of pipe cleaners. We ultimately had no way to animate it or really realistically. We probably could have just set it on him, but it's one of those characters that unfortunately fell by the wayside. That would have been a nice way for him to do the pick its way into the office. So there were some nice little touches that kind of unfortunately fell by the wayside, but just were too difficult to execute or integrate because, as you know, there were a lot of characters in Spiderwack.
Another thing I really loved about Spiderwack was that you really mastered the art of making the puppet movement funny. Just because they're funny characters just by being themselves and the personality you gave them, but you also use the power of their movements to make them even more funnier. Mm-hmm. And it's something I really love for example, in Team America, that they use the movements of the puppets follow me this way, and they don't really fit into the doors, or they walk awkwardly because they are puppets. Right. And it's funny. Has a lot of usage in comedy, and you really master that too in the Spiderwack.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we basically, it's not Henson level puppeteering, so having it consistently goofy kind of worked in our, to our advantage. We had discussions, Michael and I, he always likes to see can you get rid of the rods? Can you have it so we don't see the rods? And I'm like, they're there, the puppeteering, this creature, those are kind of discussions. What fits with the style, what doesn't fit with the style? And I definitely agree that'd be kind of interesting if they didn't. I think it'd be kind of weird if the rods were removed, because then you'd be like, whoa, why is this one part so good and you don't see the
it can be a different different points of view, right? Oh my god, there's no rods in the arms. That's some that's some wizard magic.
Wizardry.
It's too
But
good. You
at the
just have
same
this
time,
fine
it's
line.
like
Yeah.
at the same time, it's like you see the rods. It's like, oh my god, I can see the rods. That's so funny. I
Right.
like the rods.
Yeah,
Another-
rods too.
Another thing, what was I going to say about something with the rods and with things? Now I lost my thought. But yeah, it had to do with what you see and what you don't have, what you're working with. Maybe it'll come back to me.
Oh, don't worry.
And Tim,
I have one question.
Yeah.
Every filmmaker or film buff that call, forgive me. Anyone that has seen any behind the scenes of Star Wars knows that Jabba the Hutt took the puppet of Jabba the Hutt took at least 6 people to manipulate. Do you have any intentions of creating a character that require that amount of effort and persons to move?
No, only because it never came up. And I probably, even if it did, we would probably, instead of having, 6 people, we'd have maybe 3 max or something. I'd say the troll was probably the most complicated creature we've done. But at least he was basically like a glorified mascot costume in many ways, but still made kind of from, a lot of different pieces. So yeah, I haven't had an instance where we need a Jabba the Hutt. But yeah. Oh, I do want to mention, speaking of Star Wars, though, this is a nice segue. Return of the Jedi. So we actually have an actor in our film who was in Return of the Jedi.
Really?
Yes. So our friend Kieran Shaw, who he did stunts for a lot of the Ewoks. He was in the newer Star Wars as well. He was a few creatures and different things. He's been in Indiana Jones. He's been in He was the slave driver for the White Witch in Narnia.
Oh yeah.
Narnia.
Oh,
So Kieran Shaw,
Yeah.
I got him right up here. He plays our lawn gnome.
Yeah. I was about to ask about him because he also is the double for Elijah Wood in the Lord of the Rings. Right?
Correct. Yep. He did stunts for the Hobbits, and he was Elijah Wood's scale and stunt double. Yeah, we met him at we went when we were first making Dork of the Rings. We had no idea what we were up against. We didn't really have any understanding of I didn't really understand fandoms and all these things and conventions. And we went to this little convention called TollCon in Seattle, and Kieran Shaw was there with his nephew. He was like the special guest. There was 800 people there or something. And because we were there promoting a film, they were instantly intrigued because they're in the film business, and they had just made a short film together, a drama that they directed and produced. And we run a film fest. We're like, oh, we'd love to show your short film at our film fest, and let's keep in touch. And we end up having Kieran in London. They live in London. Made an introduction to our DVD for the Dork of the Rings. And then when we're making Harvey Potter, we're like, wouldn't it be neat if you could be in this movie? Him being in Hollywood films, we're like, I'm not sure how that's going to work. We're not SAG Productions. We're way ultra low, budget. And so basically we are the work that he was able to fly over, and he basically donated his time. We just covered the cost of his trip and hotel and food and all that. And it was amazing. And so he was here 5 days working on that film, painting him blue every day. And then for this film, we decided, there's no need to fly a person out here for one scene, right? So we used Zoom. We basically directed him through Zoom and then composited him into. We had made a life-size replica of him, and then we basically had that on the set with a printout of his face on it during the movie. And whenever we needed to replace it with his real face, we'd insert whatever we had shot on Zoom. So
nice.
I mean, that's the magic of filmmaking, right? Finding solutions to all these little problems or situations that you may come up with. And I don't know, I have tried to convince Felipe to watch Disney Plus the documentary about Industrial Light and Magic on how it was created.
Mhm.
I
And
already watched it. What are you talking about?
you gotta watch it, man.
I
It's a beautiful documentary, and you'll see that. I mean, Star Wars is it's a movie made out of solutions to many problems that
Mhm.
they have to come up with in order to get the movie done. And I mean,
It
that's
doesn't
just
matter how big the film is, you still have a lot
exactly.
of troubleshooting.
Yeah, there always happens the worst in the production, in the recording, and
Right,
everything. In the props, in the puppets, you need to forcefully make like an improvisation. So that's
right.
forcefully,
And
yeah.
and
Also,
I don't know if any of you have seen the
uh-huh.
Instagram page called Shady Rigs. It's exactly what the name says, and you're gonna find a lot of solutions behind the scenes.
Okay.
Uh, that is the what the name says. It's Shady Rigs. It's duct
It's like
tape.
us. It's like us using a wheelchair as a dolly.
Right.
Yeah,
Yep. Done that. We did a
and
Terminator parody called Intimidator 2 Misjudgment Day.
Wow, I didn't
And I
know
was in
that.
college and I played the Intimidator. He was a Lego netic organism.
Uh,
So anytime he gets shot, Legos would fly off, and the guy that's the villain was the L1000, the Lego 1000. So you blow him up, his
damn,
Lego bricks come back together to reform him into.
I gotta watch that. That might
It's
look
on our. We
beautiful.
have. If anyone wants to look up, these are older film. Richards. If we look up Richardson parody productions on YouTube,
I
you'll find some of our old skits. Most of these are from the '90s, early '90s. But we have a lot of our old parody stuff up there, including the original VULASSIC Park, Intimidator 2, Misjudgment Day, Robin Hood that I mentioned earlier. While I'm thinking of it, before I forget, I want to mention three comedic films that come to mind that are my all-time favorite for about movie making. And number one, Ed Wood,
mm,
which is great. And another interesting connection to that is the co-writer Larry Karaszewski is also from this area, South Bend. And then another one would be And God Spoke, which was made in the 90s about these low-budget filmmakers who happen to get a deal making an epic Bible movie. And everything just goes, it's got, anyone who's made a movie can relate to these guys. They get to a point at the end where their budget's pulled and they're shooting at the nativity scene outside a church on the front lawn. And a cop comes up and is like, "Do you have a permit?" And they're like, "Hey, have you ever wanted to be in a movie?" And the next thing you see, the cop's dressed up, as a wise man.
I mean,
That reminds me of a parody made of Terminators and Back in Time to take care of Jesus Christ.
yes, right, yes.
yeah.
Mad TV, I think maybe.
Yes, I believe it was.
yeah,
And then the third film that comes to mind is Bowfinger with Steve Martin. Where
Ah,
he's
Yeah, that's one
and
too.
Eddie Murphy. He's making
Yeah.
it's his last chance as he's getting older to
Yes.
make the big one. He tries to get this action star, the big star, to be in it.
but
The guy doesn't
he
do
got
it,
the dream.
but he shoots it anyway by having the actors just walk up to him and film it, and the guy is paranoid
Yeah.
and thinks that people are aliens and whatnot.
And also he has like a twin, no? Eddie Murphy has a twin in that
Yes,
movie,
he plays
like
his
the idiot
brother. Yeah,
twin.
they end up getting his brother to play to fill in for like a body double for
Yeah.
scenes.
Also,
Yeah.
Tim, we got a question also first of all, everyone that is watching this live right now, if you got questions for Tim, if you want any advice, if you want any, like data source about his films, you can comment it on the YouTube so we can ask this team. But the next question is about, if you are like an indie filmmaker, you have done a lot of films. I know you have done the crowdfunding function. What advice could you give to those filmmakers that want to make movies with this, to be like indie filmmakers, to get the budget, to get the low budget? Here in Group Underworld, we love the B movies, the indie films like Lloyd Kaufman, Toxic Avenger, or Nukem High. like yours with Harry Potter or Spider-Whack?
Spiderwacks.
Spiderwacks.
Spider-Whack. What advices could you give to the people if they want to make like a low budget movie and the crowdfunding stuff? Yeah.
Okay, so that's interesting. So I haven't researched it for a while because things change constantly. So I'm not sure what any of the current trends are for what people are doing with the crowdfunding, but I will say what we did and things I've recommended to people. So back when I'd never crowdfund. Before crowdfunding was a thing, I had sort of the idea of crowdfunding, but it wasn't online. I had this idea back when we were doing some movies in the late 90s, early 2000s, like the idea of levels. And we're like businesses versus individuals. If you gave us a certain amount of money, what would you get for that? But we never successfully executed because we weren't really using the internet for it. And then years later, and so we would mostly self-finance these or find some friends who would be willing to invest. THROBBIT was the first one we wanted to try crowdfunding on. And what we decided to do was that we were so cheap, we didn't want to share any of the money or as little of the money as possible. Meaning, you go to Indiegogo, and if you go to Kickstarter or anything else that's out there, Seed and Spark, you're raising that money, you've got to hit a certain level, you don't get it, or you take a larger chunk off if you want to keep it, like Indiegogo is or was that way. It's been a while since I've looked at it. We started our own. We just set up our website. We set it up to look like any crowdfunding would be. We set up the THROBBIT.com crowdfunding, and we create our own levels. You get a copy of the movie. You get this. You get that. You get that. We just had to keep track of all that information in a way that you'd be paying the others to do it. We had to create our own spreadsheet with a little more time on our back end. But then we were able to, and we knew that most of the people who were going to fund our films were people we know in some way. We're not going to find a bunch of strangers that are like, hey, the THROBBIT, I want to throw money at that. Like, no one says that, But if you know us and you know our work, you're our primary target. So we raised $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 ultimately through crowdfunding just by using PayPal. So people could use their credit card. We were only paying a PayPal fee instead of or someone could write us a check. Someone could hand us cash. We kept our own tally that we would just hand update every day. This is the amount we're at. So someone could give us $500 in cash in hand, and we didn't have to share any of that with anyone. And we'd put $500 got added to our tally. So it was a lot more extra work in that sense. But we were able to keep more of the funds. And then of course you got to remember to cover the costs of mailing and shipping all your stuff out. But since many of these people are local, we just gave it to them in person at the premiere. And then we did the same thing for VULASSIC Park, and we did the same thing for Spiderwacks, essentially, and just handled it ourselves and whatever we could get. One advantage for Spiderwacks is I got a better job while I was starting to make that. So I didn't care if I had to throw some of my personal money at it. I had a lot more cash that I could do that with. But I think the biggest problem I see people do is kind of like what not to do. I'll see someone to go, I want to make a horror movie, or I want to make this movie, and give me $25,000, and they have zero details, they have zero track record, they have zero
updates too.
That it's like how are you you need to think about this before. No one's going to just hand you a bunch of money. So you should make a video, right, introducing yourself and talking about the project. You should offer realistic rewards to people for what they're going to get for giving you X amount of money. Any kind of track record you can. If you're a new filmmaker, fine, but show at least here's photos or sketches, or here's all these things lined up, because I've seen people do all that and still not get their amount. People have seasoned, so don't overreach either on your first project. Get a few shorts, or live with a feature film that you don't mind being made for a couple $100 that you can spend out of your pocket. So those are some of my thoughts. Is don't just say, hey, I'm making a movie first time, give me $25,000 and expect anything to happen, because it won't.
Okay, that's a really good advice. I think, yeah, everyone wants to. They start and they think we need to make the biggest budget and we want explosion stuff like that. But you can create something small that is bigger in the side of how you do the stuff and how do you make solutions, as Diego said.
Mhm.
So that's incredible. And also the crowdfunding is something that I think that has evolved over the years. I think I don't know, Lloyd Kaufman, that is really from ages from the 80s. He didn't have crowdfunding in the
Right.
internet. He needed to see how he did it or improvise stuff like that. So that's important. And also the thing that you say, the people that is related to you, the people that has seen your work, the people that has seen how crazy you are, that's the people that wants
Right.
to give you the money for that
Yeah.
ideas. Also, I think that I got this dynamic that I created for this interview. Also, while the people, if there are questions, I remember you can ask him here. This is the dynamic. Tim, Luis, Tim, Felipe, Diego, if you could do right now, if they give you any amount of money that you want, what parody will you make?
Okay.
Parody.
Well, I'll say one thing. The other thing I'd say about crowdfunding is persistence
Oh,
too,
yeah.
of constant promoting, and updates.
Yeah.
But as far as film, I think Michael can answer this as well, and would have the same answer. We've had a film in the works, an idea, and even a script and everything ever since before we started doing the THROBBIT and got in the Spiderwacks. We wanted to do Burton Juice, which would basically be a complete story homage to every Tim Burton movie ever made, with a main character who's a young filmmaker, teenage filmmaker who admires this character, this director named Tim Burtman, and ends up basically in his mind, in his world, and has this journey, Alice in Wonderland type journey through Tim Burton's brain or imagination, if you will. And so you end up with all these parodies, but it would be done we would want it to look as much like a Tim Burton movie as possible, which means heavily art directed, and all that. So it's really beyond sort of our means right now in terms of what we would feel would do it justice, right? To make you feel like even at a low budget level that you're watching a Tim Burton type movie. So that would be something we would definitely want to produce.
Awesome. That sounds
Nice.
incredible. I will,
Please do it. I want to watch that. I want to watch it.
I want to watch that also.
Me?
I'm
Yeah.
ready to back that project.
Mm-hmm.
Diego, Felipe, what parody would you make if you could have any amount of money? Fucking presidents give you the money. They tell you, do the shit that you want. Make any shit that you want. Do it.
I already had an idea that I was chatting with Diego
Uh-huh.
about making a parody of the superhero genre, but superheroes meet the office. It's not like
Okay.
following the steps of the superhero saving the city, but it's an agency of workers that are like the insurance of the town. It's like, oh my god, Superman broke the bank again. we need to rebuild that thing. Or
Mhm.
like they are walking the office like chatting next to the water jug, and a super villain comes flying into the building and starts smashing with the hero in the middle of the hallway, and it was like, oh yeah, that happened every single Tuesday like that. So,
Right.
or like open the window to take some air, and literally Spider-Man hangs in the face like, oh my fucking god. Something like that. Like it's like making a parody of the normal people into the
Right.
a city full of superheroes.
Mm-hmm.
Now that you've put it that way, maybe we can team up with Tim and make it a reality.
That would be awesome.
That will be awesome.
That would be awesome. I actually have never thought of of making a parody of anything. I've had my dreams of making something big and epic, right?
Mhm.
Like anybody else have done. But when I don't know why it just made click at the same time, I was thinking properties. One that appeared at the same time that Tim was mentioning this part of Tim Burton, all his aesthetic work put into his parody film. I thought about the Matrix,
Oh.
but not the part of the sci-fi part of the Matrix, but all these movies that followed the trend of how they were of the wardrobe
Wardrobe.
that they have in the Matrix, right?
Mhm.
All these super tight, uh, super
Leather.
spendy leather i- in total black, and there came a lot of movies that follow it. One of that come into mind is the underworld films
Mhm.
that
Okay.
just follow the same aesthetic, or even previous to the Matrix, it was the Blade film that they have the same aesthetic, and it was like probably a parody out of that, but focused on the wardrobe, on the costumes.
Mhm.
Yeah, you can have a really good skit of some dude wearing all leather, black leather, and sunglasses in looking at the sun like, I'm burning alive. There's a lot of heat inside of it, but damn, I look cool.
Yeah, exactly.
So Santiago, what would you make?
Oh, I got a story that I always wanted to make like a movie about it. I don't know if you know, Tim, the book, the feather pillow story
I don't think
of
so.
Horacio Quiroga. Well, the story is about it's a story about a girl that I don't remember if it was a girl, a wife. I don't remember too much, but she was like in the bed and she got like a disease, you know, and this person always comes like, what is happening and what the hell, right?
Mhm.
So one day she dies, and then she sees that in the feather pillow, there was like a monster absorbing the blood. So I
Mhm.
always wanted to make a parody about that, about
Okay.
a married couple, that just married couple that go to a house, and they make love in the bed, but suddenly one day the girl starts to die, and then she dies, but the
Mhm.
blood is absorbed by the mattress
Mhm.
of the bed. So the thing is that a couple days before, a couple days earlier, this like mattress starts like getting life, like starts to eat people.
Mhm.
So the husband loves so much the bed, because the bed is his wife. His wife is the monster, is the bed. So the husband loves her too much that he starts to bring people to the room to start to feed the bed. So it's like a freaking bed monster that is
Mhm.
eating everyone, and
Yeah.
it's like a parody of the feeder pillow, but a parody about how a married couple with a lot of love, the wife it starts to become a mattress bed monster that eats people. So yeah, that's the idea that I always wanted
All
to
right.
make.
I think that's
There's
filmable.
Uh,
there's a film called Killer Bed or Killer Mattress. I think it's the name.
Yeah.
It's horrendous, but you should watch it, Santiago.
Okay, I need to watch it.
I mean,
Well,
that will join the all these other movies like how was this film called? I think it was Rubber about
Yes, the
the
tire.
killing tire.
Hmm.
Yeah, Robert the Tire.
Rubber. Uh-huh.
that's hard.
I think I saw like something when I was looking through streaming, like something a Killer Donuts or something even, or
The
Killer.
Invasion of the Killer Tomatoes también.
That
Well, Tim, to end the interview, it was a pleasure, but I
yeah.
would love to just two things. First of all, for everyone watching this live, for everyone that sees the recording of this live, how can we see your movies, your new movie Spiderwacks comes in 2024? How can we watch it? If we are from Mexico, if we are from the United States, Canada, whatever country, and we're interested in watching your movies, how can we do it? And also, I know that you got a page in YouTube, like you told us, that
Already
you
subscribe.
the Richardson Parody Productions, and we can watch some stuff of you. But if we want to watch, I don't know, VULASSIC PARK, Harry Potter, THROBBIT, how can we watch it?
All right, good question. So I need to update some of my websites a little bit, I think, but richardsonproductions.net is sort of the hub for everything. But I don't know if it actually, I need to double check it to see if it actually can take you to all our different social media. But if you go there, you can definitely purchase digital downloads of Harry Potter, Dork of the Rings, The THROBBIT, VULASSIC PARK. So that would be the easiest place to get those films and watch them. If you go onto YouTube and you look for us under RP Studios, also Richardson Productions, some of our older movies are there for free, including Kill the Messenger, the Civil War movie. Some of our short films like Night of the Living Spuds, which we didn't get to. Some of our other features. So there's a lot of those there. If you go to spiderwacks.com, that will have all the information. We need to update that website as we get closer to the release. That film will come out early next year. So hopefully within the first 3 months is my hope, somewhere in there. And we'll have digital downloads so that you can check that, have access. We'll also have a limited supply of maybe some digital copies. We may have ways that you can sort of rent the movie or buy the movie. I'm not sure what the streaming options will be for that, but we definitely want to try to make it as available as possible. We'll start doing screenings locally, but we also show them at conventions and different things. We do have Dork of the Rings and Harry Potter up on Amazon. So if you check out Amazon.com, you can search for us there and rent or buy them there, however that works. And then we'll probably try to get Spiderwacks on there as well. We just got to make sure we've got to use some things with subtitling and some other things to make sure it's available. But those are some of the ways you can find our projects and check them out. And we're on different social media. So if you're on Facebook, we're definitely facebook.com/Spiderwacks. That's really the place where we put out the most updates regularly for the film. And you can always email me personally, even at rpfilms@gmail.com or spiderwacks@gmail.com if you want to be added to a list or just interested in finding out more about what we do.
Excellent.
Nice.
That's incredible. And the other thing, finally, what advice could you, there are two advices that we want to hear. The advice from Tim and the advice from Hotspot. So first of all, what advice could you give to all the filmmakers, producers, everyone that is watching right now this? What advice, like the life advice of Tim from of films, of life, whatever you think it's crucial, what will be that advice?
One thing I always tell my film students or in the filmmaker group that I'm part of or anyone that I meet is do what I do, which is just make stuff. So a lot of people are held up for waiting to make the perfect project or make some big thing. With having a phone, everyone has one of these in their pocket. So I basically say there's no excuse not to make something, whether it's 30 seconds long or whether it's 3 hours long. You can shoot. You've got the resource. You can shoot stuff. There's so many ways to make stuff now and put it out. But if you're interested in film and not just content, as that word gets kind of thrown around, if you're looking to make film something that's not something passive. You can do that with your phone still. You can get equipment. The quality is better than ever before. I started out shooting on VHS tapes and editing between two VCRs. And you find a way. And now you can just shoot it all on your phone and you've got an app. So make movies, make shorts, make, anything. It's got to just, come up with a creative idea, execute it. Don't expect it to be perfect. Just improve with each thing you do. And don't wait for the big one. Don't wait till you have $1 million and you're not going to make this idea unless, if you've got an idea that needs a budget, then sure, wait, but do other stuff in the meantime. I've never let budget hold me back from making a project. So just keep making stuff. And number two, and first and foremost, enjoy what you do, so have fun. So don't make stuff if you're not having fun, but also don't hold yourself up. It's kind of like, I saw a recent old interview with Stephen King. He writes for a certain amount of time every day. That's how he gets through a novel. So if you're working on projects, either be writing something, storyboarding something, planning something, filming, keep at it, do anything you can to kind of keep moving forward, because life can get in the way, money can get in the way. And try to just do something reasonable that fits where you're at in your life, but just make something. Don't worry about it. At least make it for you.
Do it. Do it.
Just do it.
Hogsworth would say the same thing. Actually, Hogsworth would say, "Just give up now."
Hogsworth, I know, but I got the question for Hogsworth. It's different. Can you bring Hogsworth for the question?
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Yes, I was trying to take a nap.
Yes, so I got a question for Hogsworth.
Yes.
What do you recommend? What could you recommend to group Underworld, like Diego, Felipe, and me, to catch a beast? To catch a beast here in Mexico. No Bigfoot. Like a real beast.
Brethren down there in the southern lands. Well, my friend Koopa Chabra is down that way, and what I've heard is he'd rather not be found, actually. So I'd rather not out him, but he does like tequila.
Tequila, okay. So
we can work with that. We can work with that,
yeah.
Now, as proven this past weekend, you can't work with that.
Yes, I can.
No,
I cannot work with Andres, but I can work with tequila.
I mean,
I'm off to bed.
Awesome. Thanks, Oswald. Thanks. Well, I think this is the end of the interview. Thank you really much, Tim Richardson. It's a pleasure. You're my friend by various years, but I really appreciate that you are in this interview with Group Underworld, which is a page that we are creating, a YouTube channel, TikTok channel that we are creating to try to show the passion in horror films, monsters, creatures, every subgenre of horror and fantastic movies. So it's incredible to have you here. Also, I don't know if something wants to say Diego, Felipe to end the interview.
Felipe.
Oh, okay. I go. No, it was really a pleasure. I love chatting with you about the monsters, the puppets, your inspirations, all of that, because all of those inspirations you have with your puppets, I also have with mine. I also grew up loving Labyrinth, grew up loving Jim Henson. All of these puppet shows, it was also a really big part of my childhood. So speaking with someone that works with them, that does magic with them, that does film with them and incredible comedies, it's like I don't know, it's like a goal I already reached. So thank you very much, Tim.
Oh, you're welcome.
Diego?
Thank you very much, Tim. It was such a pleasure. It was such a blast having this talk before and after before we start streaming live. I'm so sad that we cannot talk a little bit longer. I wish we could have a second part, follow-up for this interview. Maybe a little bit longer. Maybe we can see a little more insight into your workflow. so we can get some ideas.
Okay. Yeah. I'd love to.
And yeah, looking forward for future projects. Looking forward for Dr. Spiderwacks release, and why not maybe do some coverage about it when times comes.
Yeah, that'd be great. I appreciate it.
Now,
It will be awesome. And surely we will have a second interview if Tim wants.
Yeah.
We will have it whenever he wants.
Yeah.
We make a second interview. It's his mind is full of glorious magic in the filming as a person. So an interview with him it's like a masterclass. But yeah, well, thank you very much, everyone that has been in the live. From
thank you all.
the world. I didn't make the translation in Spanish.
Yeah, I noticed.
So
a todos los hispanoparlantes que estaban viendo la entrevista, si nos llegaron a entender, qué chido. Si no nos llegaron a entender, va a haber
Santiago le va a poner subtítulos.
Well, to quote, remember in the movie. Remember, we have the blowhard, the conservative blowhard character. He says, "Hey, this is America. Speak American."
I mean, that's yeah.
Oh, and
that's
shout out to
that's gonna touch some fibers.
don't worry. Shout out to my friend Fernanda. She was in the live too, and she's also an aspiring filmmaker. So hello, Feb.
Fantastic.
awesome. Well, thank you very much, everybody. This is Growth from the World. Bye, and see you in the videos of YouTube, TikTok. Subscribe, and share, give likes, and go and support him in the Spiderwacks movie. That's right. And every project that he has, go and support it. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.